All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We have saved one of the best sessions for the last, and it's my immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Rammanan Ramanathan, who is the former first mission director of the Atal Innovation Mission and additional secretary of the Niti Aayog, Government of India. He's currently the chair of the National Expert Advisory Council in Technology, Innovation, Incubation, Entrepreneurship of the Department of Science and Technology in India, as well as the governing board, Mission Governing Board India AI Mission member. A lot of accomplishments, a lot of impact, fantastic amount of work. If I read through everything, it will take me the whole time of this session, but at least let me highlight one key piece. Dr. Ramanathan started at TCS, at Tata Consulting Services, when it was relatively in its infancy. And by the time he left in 2021, it was one of the top 3 IT consulting companies in the world. For the last few years, he also started as mission director at the Atal Innovation Mission, which is the Government of India think tank, to drive the creation of a world-class innovation and entrepreneurship national ecosystem across the country. During this stint, this program established over 10,000 tinkering labs in schools across the country, enabling over 6 million plus school children to acquire a problem-solving, innovative mindset. There are 75 plus Atal incubators in university, fostering over 4,000 plus startups, of which 900 plus are women-led startups. There are 56 Atal New India and Arise or Applied Research and Innovation Challenges for startups and micro to small medium enterprises. Over 19 Atal Community Innovation Centers to foster local innovation and local job creation, 40 plus international strategic partnerships, and a network of over 7,000 plus mentors of change to mentor this whole network. It has been recommended by multiple agencies as a model to be adopted by other countries. Dr. Ramanathan's work has been honored. He's a distinguished alumni of the IIT Mumbai, where our Cornell Provost is also an alumni of IIT Mumbai. So some common links there. He's also the lifetime chair of the Harvard Business School AMP 187 Alumni Association. He has been recognized in the top 100 IITians in contribution to the service to nation, most valuable CEO award from Business World twice, and the list goes on. I'm so delighted that you're able to join us, and we really look forward to this session and learning from you. Thank you so much.
Screen to lose this. Okay, if you want to change the slides, so you can lose this. So this is changing. This is to point at that. Okay, yeah, it's quite strong. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's indeed a pleasure, privilege, and an honor for me to be part of this very distinguished group of people here on a topic that I think is so very relevant, not only to India, but to the rest of the world. We are all deliberating together and seeing how we can collaborate to address some of the most pressing challenges the world has, and in particular, India has. And it has always been, for me, a very, very invigorating day or an experience when I meet with people like all of you and the young startups who are out there, to have a chance to not just share what I know or what I have learned over the years, but also to be able to learn from them. And I thank Tony, Dr. Tony, and all the others who have invited me here today. So I would take the next 35-40 minutes to share this journey of the Indian innovation landscape that has evolved over the last couple of years. All of you are aware that it's a large country. We are 1.4 billion people. We have in this country more than 650,000 villages. We have more than 715 districts. We have 8,000 small towns and cities. And we have only 8 tier 1 cities in India where everybody flocks to for improving their lives, for improving the quality of their lives, for finding meaning and purpose, and so on. And therefore, there is this great challenge that India has. 40% plus of our people are in the agri-economy. 115 of the 715 districts that we are talking about are called aspirational districts because they are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of basic access to healthcare, education, clean drinking water, sanitation, waste management, affordable housing, infant mortality, maternal mortality, and so on. And so this paints a grim picture to start off with, but it is also a fact, and it is also a positive fact, that there are many things that are happening. Many parameters are converging together to make this one of the most interesting, unique inflection points for India and an opportunity that needs to be capitalized upon. Several factors that are playing into this and converging together at the same time. I had the unique opportunity, as was described by Dr. Saurabh, to be part of a private sector. I started off my life in private sector in TCS after graduating from IIT Bombay. So we saw the growth of the private sector, particularly the IT field. It has grown to become 250 to $300 billion industry over the last 30, 40 years. And that's been an amazing growth for a private sector, which just started off from nowhere. And nobody thought that this would become, India would become a powerhouse for offshore talent and knowledge processing and so on and so forth. It has established India among the emerging knowledge capitals of the world. The second one was with a public sector organization, which was acquired by the private sector, which was CMC. And that gave me an insight into the government of India organizations. And though many of us think that private sectors are very entrepreneurial and they are very enterprising, it is amazing how much innovation and how much enterprise is there in some of the public sector organizations. The computerization of Indian Railways, for example, is no small task, and that was done by a company called CMC. The first depository to be set up in the country and the first stock exchange to be automated by the country was done by CMC. It was called Computer Maintenance Corporation. Many firsts were there where products, more than a slew of 100 products were created by this company. And though India is known for services, very few people knew that most of the IT products that were developed were by the government of India. And so that developed in me an enormous respect for what the government of India has achieved over the years in terms of spurring innovation from within. But when it was acquired by the Tata Group, and I was part of the think tank to recommend its acquisition because I had great respect for what CMC had accomplished, that automatically, I think at the end of the stint when CMC got merged into TCS after 15 years as a very, very successful privatization initiative of the government of India, that I got a chance to work with the Atal Innovation Mission. And it probably led to that. So connecting the dots back together, this combination of public and private sector was what the government of India or the Honorable Prime Minister said that he wanted somebody from the private sector, but with experience in the public sector to lead Atal Innovation Mission. Now, I'm going to share a little bit more about what the landscape is. While I described about various issues that we are having in the country, first and foremost, let's look at all the positive things that are happening and which are all converging together. It is one of the fastest growing economies of the world. We are growing at 6 to 8%, and the opportunity for India to grow between 8 to 12% is very high. It has a unique demographic dividend that is the envy of many a country. More than 65% of our country is under 35 years old. More than 50% of our country is under 25 years old. Now, that represents a tremendous amount of youthful energy coursing through this nation. If this youthful energy is not harnessed and not capitalized upon, it can become a demographic nightmare. So what we call as a demographic dividend can become a demographic nightmare if not properly harnessed and if not properly empowered. We are living indeed in a globalized economy with connectivity, commerce, collaborations, and what we are seeing today is one of those things that is very necessary for not only companies in India or organizations in India, but also organizations abroad to be able to thrive and survive. And so we are living at a time when connectivity is making it possible for us to think of working beyond our borders, as well as for people with diverse capabilities and expertise to come together for the betterment of the world. There are sweeping advances in computing, telecommunications, and so on. 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, augmented reality, virtual reality. All of these are converging together to make artificial intelligence a reality today. We all talked about artificial intelligence even when I was studying in IIT in 1981, but it never was so real as it is today. And the opportunity to reimagine this entire world with AI and all the other technologies powering it is indeed mind-boggling. And finally, all of this means that there is also a tremendous amount of focus that we need to give on how do you make sustainability as one of the core themes when you're innovating and when you're creating new solutions for the marketplace and for the world, because you don't want more emissions, you don't want more climate change problems. India has 300 million people as a part of the middle class rising economy, but while it is a great thought, it is also a frightening thought that another 300 million people are going to be added to this middle class rising economy within the next 10 years. Now, when you have 600 million people prospering, there's going to be tremendous demand for all the services and the goods and the products and electronics and so on and so forth. Is that going to generate more problem, or is that going to generate lesser of a problem and more of happiness for the people? That needs to be kept into mind, and therefore all innovation, any innovation that has happened in the world today needs to be re-looked at from a sustainability angle, from an SDG angle, and so on and so forth. Now, all of this was recognized by the government of India, and therefore that drove the national innovation and entrepreneurship imperative of India. They said at a school level, if you talk about innovation, what is required is not just have a nation of job seekers, which we have been very good at. Indians have been very good at seeking jobs, and we have like I said, a 300 billion ITS industry where most of us are providing services for large companies across the world. But can we become also a nation of job creators, not just job seekers? And if you want to become a nation of job creators, you need to make sure that at the very young age where people are studying in schools, that you induct in them and you infuse in them a problem-solving, innovative mindset rather than a rote-learning mindset that all of us have been used to. I grew up in an environment where I was only encouraged to get good marks, go to the next class, get good marks again, go to a good university, get good marks again, go to university abroad, and get good marks again and join a nice company. And that was the route and the path that most of us took. But that path, what led us here, is not going to lead us further. So we need to create a nation of job creators. We need to create problem solvers. So we have to start at the school level. And therefore, there's been a slew of educational reforms called the NEP 2020, the National Education Policy 2020, which has ushered in a new way of thinking in terms of education. And what you're going to see is in terms of the tinkering labs that have been set up. The government of India embarked on a very ambitious scheme through the Atal Innovation Mission to say, how do we, between grade 6 to grade 12, acquaint our young students with problem solving, innovative thinking. And we thought that by setting up tinkering labs where 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, AR, VR, do-it-yourself kits were provided to them in a lab. They were encouraged to solve problems of their own, identify problems. You go from your home to the school, look at the problems that the children were encouraged, look at problems that you see, people crossing the road, hygiene, waste being frittered away or being thrown here and there. Look at the problems, identify the problems, and come up with a solution where you are able to leverage the technology through the do-it-yourself kits and create a prototype of an innovation. Now, it may seem to be a very small thing, but it has had a tremendous impact in terms of the excitement it has created both in the students' mind, and they are eagerly running to the tinkering lab. There were no marks given, no credits given, nothing. It is just the pure joy of tinkering. That is the reward. And we thought we wanted to experiment with this because the moment you put marks and the moment you put examinations and all of that, you'll suddenly have a lot of classes starting and saying, we will offer the best training for you to be able to get the best marks in tinkering. And so we did this, and lo and behold, what we found, some interesting facts. 70% of these tinkering labs were set up in girls' schools and co-ed schools, and 70% were set up in government schools across the country. So government schools are among the poorer schools. The private schools are well funded. The government schools are funded only by the government. But the best, we ran tinkering challenges of the month, tinkering marathons in the year, and tinkering fests in various regions. The best innovations came from rural India, tier 2, tier 3 cities, schools, because we realized that the students are very familiar with the problems. And when they are very familiar with the problems, the solution becomes even finer and better and more innovative. In the plush atmosphere of a private school, students are not acquainted with day-to-day problems of what they encounter. And so this was a great finding. We found that 50% of the winners of the tinkering marathons were girl students. Now that again was was a real find, because the girl students, we realize, I mean, and it's no surprise, the ability to multitask, the ability to ask questions when they were in trouble, the ability for them to be able to communicate amongst each other in teams, and the ability to share their problems made them the winners in the tinkering challenges and the tinkering marathons. And so that is something that is now being encouraged big time. So more than 6 million young students are now tinkering with technologies and creating solutions. And some of you would be surprised. I mean, you should visit the nearest tinkering lab anywhere. Every district in India has a tinkering lab or more than one tinkering lab. And the mentors are all people like you and me who can go and mentor these students, because what we tell is you don't need to have expertise in 3D printing or robotics. You need to be able to encourage them to solve problems and be a problem solver and look for solutions. So if you don't know something, look for in the internet or talk to a specialist or whoever who will. So you have to enable that part to them. So then at the university level, we set up incubators. There were a few incubators in 2000. All of these journeys started in 2016. There were some incubators in the country, but the incubators were mostly silo incubators. They were working on their own. What we wanted to create was a network of incubators who would collaborate and cooperate with each other and learn from each other. So today we have, all of this funding was provided by the government of India. So the setting up of a tinkering lab was given as a grant to the school of 20 lakhs of Indian rupees. The setting up of an incubator was given as a grant to the incubator, to the university for 20 crores, which is roughly today 1.2 or $1.3 million of grant, which was given so that they could set up an environment where startups, young students who are graduating from the universities, instead of joining a particular company, if they were interested in starting a startup, they would be supported by that incubator. They would get seed funding, they would get an environment, they would get workstations and other equipment that is required. If it is a biotech incubator, costly equipment which cannot be afforded by any startup would be bought by the incubator and be available on a shared basis and so on. So today we have 900 incubators across the country, and I'll share you some more details. Most of the ministries and corporates started getting involved in open innovation challenges, so that what do we innovate on? What are the problems that we are having, either at a corporate level or at a ministerial level? And these challenges were launched in the incubators so that startups had a particular set of problems to deal with. And not only that, if they had a problem and they could solve the problem, we modeled it after the SBIR model in the United States. I had a chance to visit and see it in close operation. So we launched two set of challenges called ARISE challenges, which is Applied Research and Innovation for small enterprises, where you give a challenge and you fund it for conceptualization to innovation. And then the Atal New India challenges which would further from innovation to commercialization. So these challenges were launched along with the ministries and so on. We set up community innovation centers to serve the interests of rural India, because after all, innovation without carrying the masses is of no use to the country. The GDP may rise, but the GDP per capita will still remain the same or go down. And we have enough problems that we talked about. And we also, there was a lot of initiatives. All of you are familiar with the digital public infrastructure that India has set up, the Aadhaar ID, the payment stack, the health stack, and so on and so forth. These initiatives powered the underlying innovation and made innovation easier. So for example, when COVID struck, CoWIN, an application which was used in India, and Arogya Setu for tracking where COVID was, the ability of these two applications came from startups, which were all funded by the government of India and through the incubators. And during COVID-19, the government of India asked for solutions, preventive, curative, and assistive solutions to address the COVID-19 problem. Within 2 weeks, March 21st, there was a lockdown. Within 2 weeks, we received 1,500 potential preventive, assistive, and curative solutions by startups, not from the corporates, by the startups of India. So it really showed how interested the students were in being able to solve problems, but more importantly, it showed the talent that was there. And when we looked at it, many startups pivoted from what they were doing to a COVID-19 startup because they realized that COVID-19 has put their plans on hold, but they were able to leverage some portion of their supply chain management, GPS-based solution or whatever to be able to pivot to meeting the COVID-19 crisis. So the COVID-19 crisis actually saw the decentralization and the democratization of innovation flower and begin in India at that time. So all of this has resulted in explosive growth of startups, not only trying to meet the India demand, but also addressing global opportunities. For after all, when you solve a problem for India for 1.4 billion people, you're able to solve it for 7 billion people across the planet, or the potential to solve for 7 billion people across the planet exists. And so what has all this resulted in? So this has resulted in a number of venture capital, FDI, investors, and private sector getting excited about it. Until recently, or I will say until 4 to 5 years ago, the corporate sector, the private sector, or venture capital were really not interested in supporting innovation or startups in India. They used to mainly support innovation from outside. But now, with this explosive growth of startups and the ability for them to see that, I mean, COVID-19, corporates realized that they didn't have solutions to offer which the startups had. And so this embracing of startups began from that point in time. So what is the net? We are I think India is one of those few countries, I would say, without any bias or not immodestly, that it is really driving the innovation and entrepreneurship landscape in India through every department, every ministry is supporting it. The Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Biotechnology, the Ministry of Agriculture, every ministry has been tasked with how are you going to support innovation, how are you going to support startups, how are you going to ensure that these startups are going to succeed. Atal Innovation Mission at the Niti Aayog, which is the National Institution for Transforming India, Startup India, DRDO, ISRO. ISRO is the Indian Space Research Organization. MeitY is the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. All of them are now supporting many, many initiatives, some of which I will talk about. And this has resulted today in one of the fastest growing startup ecosystems in the world. We have more than 170,000 plus startups today, with more than 125 plus unicorns all come over the last 7 or 8 years. It has thrust India into the Global Innovation Index position from a position of 81 in 2016 to a position of 48 today. And I really feel, personally, I feel without any data to really back me up, that we have the ability to become among the global top 10 innovative countries in the next 20 years. And that is the potential that this country has and the capability that it has, driven by the demand the country itself has. The country's demand, in fact, it was very eloquently stated by the Honorable Prime Minister in his address when he came up with this slogan, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat is a self-reliant India. It didn't mean an India that is not going to work and collaborate with others. It meant that an India that is able to stand up to meet its own demand. And the demand is tremendous, 1.4 billion people. And he identified 5 pillars of this demand. The pillar of demographic dividend, which needs to be addressed, which means education, empowerment, and enablement of the people, the young people, to be able to meet the demands of the nation in the years ahead. The pillar of infrastructure, we need smart infrastructure, smart villages, smart districts, smart water management, smart electricity management, and so on. The pillar of infrastructure is the second pillar. The third pillar is the pillar of demand of 1.4 billion goods, new services, etc., that needs to come up. The fourth is the pillar of socio-economic progress. Socio-economic progress meaning societal startups or social venture startups and social impact startups are highly encourage in the country, because we need to solve those problems, which I talked about, the 115 aspirational districts that they have, and the pillar of technology, which glues everything together. And this is what the opportunity is for the country. So as a result, there has been a tremendous focus on transforming the educational systems in India, and universities like St. John's and others are now encouraged to see how you are going to address societal challenges facing the nation, including education, healthcare, accessibility, inclusivity, sustainability, and climate change. How do we create a future-ready skilled youth of the country with AI and emerging technologies coming in, and how do we create new job creators of the future, rapidly growing the economy? And the how part is therefore creating a vibrant tech-enabled innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, acquiring 21st century skills, including design thinking and communication skills, and leveraging emerging digital, sensor, and software technologies, and so on. I've already spoken about tinkering labs, but this is just to show what happens in a tinkering lab. It is a hub of innovation for young students. So all of these, by the way, the do-it-yourself kits were designed along with MIT and with Stanford and the IITs in India and ISC. So it was a joint initiative to define the do-it-yourself kits. You are able to get a set of kit assembled for 50 students at a very cost-effective price of 7 lakhs. So 7 lakhs of Indian rupees you invest for a school. 50 students at a time can tinker around with these kits which are made available to them. And therefore, this has now all the schools which have not got government grant, they themselves are acquiring it because it's not a costly thing for them to do. Number of challenges are launched as a requirement for them to get familiar with. So these are all the young students. It's amazing to see some of the innovations. For example, in a girls' school in Thoothukudi in Salem, which is in the coastal districts of Tamil Nadu, we have 8 standard girl students who have created a solar panel IoT-based irrigation management system. Now, how wonderful is that for somebody at that level to be able to create a prototype of an innovation? Then a local company has decided to manufacture that and make it available. This was tested out by the people because Salem has issues with water. They have scarcity of water, or they have floods. It's one of the two extremes. They have problems with electricity. So these children were the children of farmers and so on who realized that this is a problem to be solved. And similarly, in Sikkim, robotic-based waste management facilities have been developed by, prototypes have been developed by young students. The incubators, of course, where the whole idea was to eliminate or bridge the valleys of death that a startup typically undergoes during its life cycle because of lack of technology support or research support or funding support or mentoring support or business planning support and so on. And so there were two basic approaches that we did. We said technology-based incubators, which were agnostic to what problem they were solving in a vertical, and then we had thematic incubators, which were vertical focus, agriculture focus, health focus, biotech focus, transportation focus, and so on. So when we were setting up an incubator, we used to ask them very clearly what is the theme that they would adopt. Would they be a TBI or a technology-based incubator, or would they be a theme-based incubator? And the reason was, if they were located in a region where a thematic incubator made sense, a vertical-based incubator made sense, then they would be encouraged to set up that, because you have local people who need that solution. If it is primarily in an agri place, if it was Rajasthan, for example, if you set up an incubator for fostering e-commerce, for all the handicrafts that they do and the artworks they do and so on, then they would automatically get the grant and they would earn. If it was Kashmir, then it was organic farming and sports. For example, they have a lot of willows so you can create cricket bats and so on and so forth. So there is a very tremendous focus that comes. And as a result of which, we really have seen startups which are very focused on what they are doing, and as a result of which, there is some positive impact. In addition, every university is encouraged to set up an innovation e-cell. Now, almost there are, just from a statistical point of view, there are 1.4 million schools in India, 600,000 secondary schools. We have 10,000 engineering and related institutions, and we have about 39,000 colleges. And so overall, around 50,000 universities and colleges together. And 150 million students will be graduating from these over the next 5 to 10 years. So this is the demographic dividend advantage that we have. How do we ensure that all of these people get empowered and have access to the latest technologies that are shaping the world of tomorrow? And that's why the centers of technical excellence in research institutions and innovation e-cells in universities are being set up. They also pave the way for an incubator to be set up, because we realize that you cannot just set up an incubator without having some of these tinkering labs in the schools, innovation cells in the universities, and then they move into a trajectory of being able to create a startup. These are the community innovation centers that I talked about. The whole idea of a community innovation center is, how do you have community-centric innovation? We have 650,000 villages, like I said, and we have 715 districts. The government decided to adopt one product per district type of approach, if it was feasible. That is there a product that can come out of this district which is going to foster local employment, local innovation, and capitalize on the local talent that the people have. I'll give you an example. Goa. Many of you are familiar with Goa. Goa has a tourism industry, it has a fishing industry, it has a shipbuilding industry, it has a mining industry, and it has a cashew nut industry. So the community innovation centers would focus on innovation related to these areas and to promote innovation so that the local people can get further employment. Otherwise, you are disengaging the local people from the outputs of innovation. Now, these are the various funding schemes. I'm not going to go into all of these, but you can see, there are various funding schemes starting from what are known as ignition grants to ignite the innovative spirit of the young entrepreneur in the college or the school, to a grant, which is a startup, a seed funding, and accelerator grants for accelerators when the startup has reached a certain level of maturity and it needs higher amount of funding. So if you take the Department of Science and Technology, you have entrepreneurs in residence, EIR, then you have the technology business incubator, you have seed support systems, you have a Nidhi accelerator where the accelerator would give grants to the startups who are undergoing acceleration to the tune of anywhere between 40 lakhs to a crore, depending upon the need of that particular startup. If there is more required, now the accelerators are also encouraged to work with private sector, and private sector is being incentivized today to join hands with these accelerators so that you are able to get funding not just from the government but also from the private sector. The Department of Biotechnology has over 73 incubators, BioNest incubators. They also have different types of grants, ignition grants and Amrit grants and so on. I've already talked about the Atal Innovation Mission. Startup India is an umbrella organization for all the startups. They allocate funds for the startups which are distributed through AIFs or alternate investment funds, and so they give the responsibility of the distribution of the fund to other organizations or incubators to the startups who need them. And MeitY is the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. They are very active today in supporting AI. The India AI Mission has been formed, and the India AI Mission is having 7 pillars identified that will drive the AI growth and adoption in this country. That's there on the website. I'm part of the Mission Governing Board. I'll be happy to share more data on that whenever, if anybody needs that. But that's also a very comprehensive approach to how AI can play a big role in India's future in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, in addition to that, what has happened is after the Atal Innovation Mission and DST and all were set up, that has now got adopted by state innovation mission. So you have a state innovation mission which is doing exactly what the Atal Innovation Mission used to do. So you have 32 states, and each of those states have a state innovation mission. They give incubator grants to accelerator grants, skill development grants. Now, mind you, these are all grants. These are not loans. There is a loan scheme which is separate for the MSME market and so on. But these grants are India's experiment with research, development, and innovation. And so the whole idea is to kickstart this, to support it to a point where it will start blossoming and flowering on its own. There are a number of central government schemes for women entrepreneurs, for research funding. Ministries, one of the things that I observed in the US, and that was also recommended to the government, and they have adopted it now, is that if we give a grant to a startup and the startup comes up with a solution that is relevant for a challenge thrown by the government, then they have the first right of implementation for the government. So the purchase of that product or service can be done by the government. And otherwise, previously, we had a horrendous scheme of qualifying to become a seller to the government. But a startup now has a straight access path if it has been funded and meets the criteria. I just want to end up with what is the accelerator or incubator's role and what is the expectation by the government. First of all, in attracting innovative ideas and startups, and nurturing innovation and startups through the valleys of death as the startups experience the life cycle, enabling collaboration and partnership of the kind that we are seeing here, access to university resources for research expertise and VC networks, helping business plan development and validations, because many startups are young students who have not had any business experience, and to help them in developing their business plan or evolving through mentorship and so on. Access to customer networks and market validation, this is very important. A lot of them have a solution without validation from the marketplace or refining it to the needs of the marketplace. Technology support and team building through the resources available in the universities or the accessible to the incubator. Enabling opportunities for availing of government funding schemes and angel funding schemes. This is a very important role of the accelerator, the incubator, to keep watch of. Actually, I would say one of the deficiencies is the government still doesn't do a very good marketing of its schemes which are available for funding. So many people don't even know about many funding schemes that are there. But if you go and look into the website, you will find it. The problem is you don't look there unless someone points you out and says, go and look there. So that sort of that is a role of the incubator. The incubator should make sure that the startups come to know about such schemes, and extending reach to global partnerships and co-innovations. Some of you are familiar with the C-Camp incubator. This is a remarkable success in the biotech and healthcare field. It started off, today they have graduated more than 350 startups, raised, with 80 crores of investment given to them by the government. 80 crores would be equivalent to $10 million of grant being given to them. They've been able to generate 2,000 plus crores and 6,000 plus crores of market value. And so example of within just the next, within the period of about 6 to 7 years, an incubator which has been set up has really become very, very successful because of various schemes that the government has had, but also their own, their leadership and so on and so forth. A great incubator requires great leadership, and so it is incumbent that very good leaders for the incubators are identified. Many challenges still remain in the Indian startup scene, especially in biotech, healthcare. Regulatory, legal, ethics management is still evolving. Startups encounter, product, service, roadmap implementation challenges. They often copy some other startup, maybe from the US or somewhere else, and then they find it difficult to file a patent and so on. India needs a lot of original startups and IPs to be also created, because that represents the uniqueness and the innovation quotient. product market fit, they come up with a good solution, but they are not able to scale up to the requirements of the market. Access to resources, finance and funding management. So these are all the growing pains. And as they move from the inception stage to the growth stage to the pre-IPO, IPO stage, the need for governance, startup governance, becomes even more and more important. And quite a few startups of India, which were in the limelight, have faded out because of lack of governance. And so in the G20 that was recently held by India, or which was held in India, there was a governance framework that was published, available to all the countries who participate in the G20. And that's a very comprehensive framework that is being encouraged to be adopted by all the startups in India and even in the G20 countries outside. And I always end up with this slide. Many people tell me, what is a startup? What are the critical success factor for a startup? And I say it is contained in the word startup. The S stands for solution. Do you have a unique solution? Do you have a scalable solution? Do you have a sustainable solution? And so make sure that you are solving a problem that has a unique solution and it's not already solved. The T stands for technology. Are you leveraging technology properly and appropriately? Not necessarily the latest of technologies, but the most appropriate technologies for your startup. The A stands for agility. You may have the ability, but do you have the agility through the access to right resources and so on and so forth? Do you have an action plan that will enable you to achieve your startup goals? The R stands for re-engineering your product again and again. iPhone is a great example. We are in the 16th version of one product which has created one of the largest market cap companies in the world. And so don't try to create too many products, but whatever product you do, see how you can improvise on them if there is a perceived need in the market. The other T stands for team. Do you have the right team? Very often startups have this founder dilemma where the founder wants to decide on everything from HR to IT to communications to media and so on and so forth, and funding and financial management, and then the startup starts going down. The U stands for utilization. One is when you are scarce of resources, how do you leverage your utilization? And another is when you are abounding in resources. I mean, a lot of funding comes. How do you wisely utilize those resources? So both are very important. The P stands for passion and persistence. That is what is going to make sure that the startup is going to succeed. But later on, process and productivity improvements become the key factors in the growth of the startup and the scaling of the startup. And the S stands for societal impact. Is your startup creating positive societal impact? And I do believe an incubator's role, a startup accelerator's role, or a mentor's role is to really ensure that these aspects are being taken care of and being addressed by the startup. Thank you so much for giving me a time to share some few thoughts. Sorry if I overshot my time, but I'm open to any questions from any one of you.
Thank you for the very wonderful overview. Has the IP culture improved in India? Because that has been traditionally one of the, like the IP and patents system. Has it improved over the years?
Yeah, it has improved and it is improving continuously. There is an IP, special focus on IP, and there's an IP department which has been set up, the controller of intellectual property. And we are very actively working with WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. And so there is a strong collaboration between WIPO and the Indian Intellectual Property Organization. More importantly, what is the trend that I'm seeing now, and you would see that many corporates are showing patents that they are filing, which was not the case 10 years earlier. You would not see a TCS filing any patent. And now you are seeing a TCS filing hundreds of patents, or Infosys and so on and so forth. So the IP culture in the corporates has also started, because they are realizing that that's going to be the positioning in the future. A lot of work needs to be done, but yes, there is considerable progress being made. By the way, we are teaching at the school level the importance of IP. So when the student is innovating, we are saying we are giving them a basic curriculum on what intellectual property means, and therefore for them to be aware that if there is something that is unique and patentable, and just the awareness of it, hopefully they will retain it when they move into the universities and start their own startup.
Thank you so much for this wonderful talk. It was really great to hear everything. One of the things you mentioned was the innovation. Forgive me if I forget the exact word, but the innovation grants modeled on the US SBIR program. And I will say that every single, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but almost every single successful US startup I've seen has started with that SBIR program. And it's really great to see that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think makes it successful is the integration with the next stage venture capital and so forth. So I wonder if you could comment how well those programs engage with the sort of private markets.
Yeah. So that is a gap still in India. In the US, the SBI program is very mature, and there is a tremendous support by the private sector. And when they see the potential for supporting one of those innovations and then absorbing it. In India, it has started. We are encouraging a lot of corporates to look at all the challenges that have been funded by the government so that the corporates can adopt it. There is a new initiative called commercialization of innovation, both in universities as well as in incubators. And so incubators are actively working with corporates to be able to support that. But it is still, I would say we are nowhere close to the maturity of the US market. In general, I feel in the next 5 years, you're going to see more and more corporate interventions into this entire funding, because that is a need for India right now. They are not going to move up the value chain if corporates are not innovating. And they can innovate only with the help of these sort of startups, because they have to rope in outside in innovation as much as they would like to do inside out, but they have to rope in outside in innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Raman. That was an excellent lecture.
Thank you.
Could you speak a little more about the community, centric startups in relation to health? I mean, you did give us an example of Goa where you're looking at, but is there something meant for, let's say, innovations on health in rural India?
Yeah. So I gave the example of Goa because of the it's a good example to give, and Goa is still considered rural from the point of view of the other cities and so on. But there are 25 community innovation centers that have been set up, and they are mostly in tier 3 cities, not even tier 2. So they would be set up in Meghalaya or Andaman and so on and so forth. So community innovation centers are, the idea is very straightforward, that the innovation should solve the local problems. And those in Salem, for example, the type of problems that I mentioned, they have droughts, they have water shortages, or they have water distribution systems are not good, electricity management systems are not good, infant mortality is higher, whatever, not in Salem, but in some other districts. So how do we solve those problems? And therefore, the community innovation centers would look at innovation specific to that. It would also tap into local talent, because local, and I gave the example of, Jodhpur, for example, or you take one of the Rajasthan cities, which is in the outskirts. Some of them have excellent marble sculpting capabilities, art, fine arts, and so on and so forth. And they are not seeing the light of the day because they're exposed to a very limited set of people who deal with them. So innovation can help them reach the entire world through e-commerce and having startups supporting that. And so that sort of innovation is supported. If you look at Sikkim, or if you look at Northeast, their problems are different. Horticulture management, organic farming, there are opportunities there. So how do you manage that. So when somebody applies for a community center, Atal Community Innovation Center, they are given a grant of 2.5 to 3 crores of Indian rupees, but they are asked to be matched by a local industry. So some local industry who sees the need for innovation, because otherwise that industry is getting people from outside somewhere and they are not leveraging their own local people. So the local industry will support that, and thereby the whole idea is that it benefits not only the needs of that community, but also the people by creating new jobs. So that's the idea behind it. And the other point in this is that all the community center innovations are made known to other communities. So the innovation can then get implemented in multiple communities. You don't recreate that same innovation. Otherwise, what is also happening is each one is doing the same thing and there's a lot of effort being wasted. Rather, you give more funding to one particular organization which is addressing a problem which is common to 10 communities. And thereby, you're able to give more funding and give better resources and give them an opportunity to implement in multiple locations.
Sorry, I have quite a few questions again.
Sure, sure.
Given that in health, you can't make a lot of money with biotech. You can make some money, you can probably get acquired by the Abbotts and the Roches, but I see a huge need for social impact startups, like a massive need. So have you thought about how you can sort of completely streamline, the health-based startups, given the complexity of, the Indian healthcare ecosystem and the fact that innovation is not exactly, all the things that physicians really think of.
Yeah.
So is there a change in that culture, and are you putting a lot of money for social impact so that many of these incremental, impact startups can see the light and can make a better impact?
Yeah. So as you rightly pointed out, health is one of the big requirements in the country. It's with so many people and 70% of them being in tier 2, tier 3 cities, access to quality healthcare, access to medicine, diagnostics, preventive, all of these are very, very important. And more importantly, that to be affordable by the people. It cannot be, you cannot have a high cost solution for all of this. It will not just work. So there are multiple initiatives. One is there is something called Ayushman Bharat, which has been set up. Ayushman Bharat's main focus is it is the ABDM, or the digital health mission that they have embraced, and that is a series of initiatives to ensure that affordable healthcare, affordable medicine, and affordable diagnostics, affordable med tech is made available through the. They have set up 100,000 centers through which are contact points and distribution points. The concept of Ashas in India. So there are over 1 million Asha volunteers, or not volunteers. They are recruited by the government for providing services to the community, but they need to be educated on all of this also. In addition, DBT, which is the Department of Biotechnology, is extremely focused on this healthcare, and recently they have given special initiatives, incentives for startups in terms of AI-enabled solutions for which will address the need. The problems in India, many of them have not been detected. Certain communities, there is certain type of diseases which are more prevalent because of a certain whatever it may be, water pollution, it may be forest fires or whatever, etc. But how can AI play a role in being able to detect that and be able to prevent it, and so on? So there are a number of initiatives that are happening in the country. It is recognized as a very big requirement and a very important challenge. infant mortality and maternal mortality. So what the country has done is, or Niti Aayog does, is all the 715 districts are evaluated on a set of parameters aligned with the Global Innovation Index. And these parameters are health and hygiene parameters. I mean, they include health, they include hygiene, they include water, pollution, they include education. It's not just, and then employment and so on and so forth. So there are a set of parameters, and every district is ranked. And so you have a ranking which is published, and in it is every state's, and this is discussed openly in a national meeting, which I've been part of. And so every state wants to project itself as doing better than the other. And then they see the scores of their districts, which is independently done by Niti Aayog. And so it's like a examination day for all the chief secretaries who are saying our state is doing great, to suddenly see them on that board. But this sort of thing has actually initiated a lot of improvement. And there is an aspirational district program that has been initiated, which is run by the Niti Aayog. And the aspirational district program is to raise the ranking of that aspirational district, which is at that low rank, to a higher rank by addressing the specific parameters. So very, very sharp initiatives have been embarked upon. Results will take time, but these are all already there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. I request Dr. Saurabh Mehta to felicitate sir and also provide some closing remark for the day.
All right. Thank you.